Hi, it's me again with Corel Roll Tips and Tricks, and somebody posted this on one of the Facebook pages I look at, and they had questions whether some of the pieces of the mast would just fall out. Well, all the pieces are going to fall out, but if you see this black, that's what's going to be the wood or whatever you're going to cut it out of, and here's the vector cut. And I just took it. It's a really clean bitmap or image. It is a little fuzzy, but it traced really good with the exception of the interior lines. And you can see they're a little bit more jagged. This is pretty easily done, but I would, it's brought it in at like 13 inches tall. So I'm going to reduce it quite a bit and give Corel a little help in tracing it by doing that. Because one thing it's going to do, it's going to raise it's going to resample it, really high, so that you don't have to do anything. You don't have to convert it to a bitmap because it's so clean. I would just trace it from here. Outline, trace, clip art. Takes just a few seconds and you'll see it's done. And then we're going to move the new trace over there. And I'm going to left click, right click. Now there are a couple things that I've noticed that these lines look thicker than some of the other lines. When you back up, it looks, of course, they're closer together, but they look thicker. I'm going to go to Object and Group and Ungroup, and then I'm going to click on the object. First of all, let's see how big this thing is. It's just a little less than 3, so I'm going to change my nudge factor to 3. I'm going to click on this item, and I'm going to move it over. And you see what I was talking about. It had some double lines. All these lines are actually there. Definitely you don't need this line. You don't need the wording twice. You don't need the mask twice. So that's a pretty good way to find things. And if you're never sure, you can always use the Smart Fill tool. Fill it in, then nudge it back, and then left click, right click, and you will definitely only have one line. So let's just get rid of this one for a second. And let's work on this word. And then we do have to remember that this thing was quite a bit larger. So let's go ahead, now that we've traced it and it's all together, let's make it that 13 inches and have our ratio locked so it looks the same. So we'll really know what we have to work with on the text itself. And even at this size, some of this stuff is going to, well, one, it doesn't look very good. It's not very sharp. It would work, but this is really, really thin even at that. So I would pick another font. First of all, I would just try to engrave this, but I'm going to go to Object and break the curve apart. Then we can nudge this over. And because I made it bigger now, let me tell you what, let me back up. Be a lot safer than just to do it. So now it's like 18 inches big, so we'll make it 20-inch nudge. We'll nudge this out of the way. We do need the rest of this mask, so we'll nudge it out of the way or nudge it over. It just broke the curve apart, and we do need these interior letters, and we need the interior scrolls. But what I'm trying to get to, I'm trying to just get to the wordage, so we can change the wording. The dots look pretty good, so we can nudge them over. We might have to move them a little bit. But then I would take and find a new font. And kind of make it about that size. And then pick a font you like that's going to work, that's going to be a little bit thicker. So we'll go and we'll pick this right here called Back to Dark. Now it is a little bit thicker, but we can thin it down and we can actually stretch it out a little bit. And my suggestion would be to engrave this word on this thing, because this is still going to be so small that it's going to maybe cut out and going to be kind of hard to read. So you could put that in there and engrave it. And that would be my suggestion. And to do that, you could just put it about where that word is and then nudge it over that 18 inches. Then you might have to move it a little bit and because it's a different font. Now, even engraving this, there's part of the font that's kind of messed up. So let's left click, right click, and you can see part of the font is overlapping, but we could take that font and convert it to a curve. So we're able to use the virtual segment delete key and just delete these lines. And by doing this, it'll make it look a lot cleaner. You know, just kind of, you could use the weld tool, but a lot of times it's not going to work on all this. And let's see if there's any, and there's just one little dot over here. This is a pretty good font for cutting because all of it's going to stay in, with the exception of this E. Part of that E is going to fall out. Everything else looks pretty good. So you could just take the rectangle tool and draw you a, let's just draw a rectangle, then cut virtual segment delete key and cut the centers out. And then go back and cut the ends and the middle off. And you have kind of like a font. Now I would definitely take your rectangle tool and draw a rectangle around this in case it leaks, so you won't go the whole image. And I'm going to fill that in, and I'm also going to nudge it out of the way as I fill it in. And what that did, that gave me good clean lines where all the nodes were repaired, these nodes that we had in here. So now if you want to cut it out, you could right click, left click, and then we can get rid of this font by just hitting delete, get rid of our rectangle, and then just nudge this right back. Kind of see if you're in the middle. We're a little bit one way. Let's change this to 0.2. Grab our font. Let's grab our font, hold down the shift key, grab the other parts of the font, and just nudge it over a little bit. And I missed part of the font. And I actually had some, that's almost good because I actually had some extra lines in there that it did not, I must have grabbed them. So we just grab those extra lines and delete them. And then just kind of look at your, everything else looks good. And then just as a test, just use your Smart Fill tool, and everything that's black is going to be wood. Everything that's not is going to be cut. I hope that helped a little bit, and thank you for watching.